What should we expect from the rookie quarterbacks? We'll talk about it next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Emory Hunt. We're talking about what we're going to expect from the rookie quarterbacks in 2023. Obviously, we had 3 quarterbacks taken inside of the top 4 picks in this year's NFL draft. We had another one go at 33rd overall, and then Hendon Hooker at 68. We'll talk about all 5 of those guys. And I think at this point going in, fantasy players are most excited about Anthony Richardson. He's pretty much slotted in as a top 10 quarterback. I did our consensus rankings for the Fantasy Football Today newsletter a couple weeks ago. And for Dave, Jamie, and Heath, Anthony Richardson's pretty much a top 12 quarterback. And it mostly comes down to the rushing ability there, right? We have some questions about, how his accuracy is going to translate to the NFL, how often the Colts are going to throw the ball. This was a team that if they had their druthers, even before Anthony Richardson, they wanted to run the ball a ton. And obviously Richardson's rushing ability, makes him a real weapon in that part of the game. Do you think he's ready to be a dynamic fantasy option from day one?
Absolutely. I feel like his rookie year will look a lot like Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter in 2021. I see for all of these rookies, no one's getting over 25 touchdown passes. But to your point about Richardson, when you add in 700 yards rushing and 10 rushing touchdowns, it elevates him over the rest of the other guys from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, that's the thing about rookie quarterbacks is, at other positions, specifically running back and wide receiver, tight end's kind of difficult as well. It's pretty hard for rookie quarterbacks to be really, really good from a fantasy perspective. You mentioned that 25 touchdown mark. There's only been 4 rookie quarterbacks who have ever had 25 or more passing touchdowns. Peyton Manning in 1998 also had 28 interceptions, if you remember. Russell Wilson had 26. Baker Mayfield had 27 as a rookie. And then Justin Herbert, with the record at 31, also had 4,300 passing yards. Only 4 rookie quarterbacks have had 4,000 passing yards as well. So that's when we're talking about it. That's why Anthony Richardson of this 3, I'd be surprised. Frankly, I'd be a little shocked if he got to 4,000 passing yards. Not necessarily because I don't think he'll be good, but just because the Colts probably aren't going to have him throw 600 times. I'd be a little surprised if he threw 500 times as a rookie. So he's going to have to do it with his legs. And, that's what we've seen the last couple of seasons. Justin Fields last year, Jalen Hurts, like you mentioned, Lamar Jackson's first year as a starter. That bar gets a lot lower when guys have rushing abilities. Is he, on that kind of level as a runner?
Yeah, absolutely. And because he has the ability to go 80 yards on any given play with his ability, that elevates him into that stratosphere. I would also say this to add this caveat to his pass numbers. I think people are discrediting his ability to connect on a deep ball. So if you're in a best ball situation, I think we'll see a lot of deep passing touchdowns from Anthony Richardson because of his ability as a runner, because you have to respect that. And also Jonathan Taylor. Look for guys to be on a lot of receiving end of 45 to 50-yard touchdown bombs going down the field.
Yeah, so with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young obviously being the number 1 and 2 overall picks, generally those guys don't land in great situations from year one. I think that's probably how we feel about both of them. Expectations for their rookie seasons, frankly, a bit low, and I think probably should be. Which one of them, I guess from a fantasy perspective, has the ability, do you think, to overcome what will likely be a pretty weak supporting cast in both cases?
Well, I think Bryce Young, because he has a better team and also has a better setup in terms of the guys that are around him. Frank Wright, former quarterback. We also talked about Josh McCown, former quarterback. Jim Caldwell works well with quarterbacks. Plus, there's a lot of talent on that offense. They just needed a steady hand last year to steady that ship. And he could be that steady hand coming from the experience he experienced at Alabama. So I think he has a chance to put up at least close to that 25 touchdown number while also distributing the football to a lot of different targets. You wonder where the receiving targets are in Houston, and CJ Stroud is probably going to be more so on that pitch count, dealing with the defensive-minded coach, run the football, play action, take the safe shots, and I think that's going to be their approach. So if I had to rank them, it'll go Richardson, Young, and Stroud.
And then, we've got the 2 other guys, Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. We don't expect them to start from day one, in particular, Hendon Hooker coming back from that torn ACL. But, he is someone that landing in Detroit, they've got all these pieces. They've got weapons around him, great running game, a fantastic offensive line. We saw Jared Goff have arguably the best season of his career last year. Hooker is someone that, if Goff gets hurt midseason, or if the Lions, they have playoff expectations, if they start out like 3-5, I could see them turning to Hooker, giving an opportunity. Do you think he's got the potential to be a fantasy contributor?
Not in year one, more so in year two, because we don't know where he is coming from the injury and how healthy or how much he trusts that knee. So that's the key. And I think next year we can have this conversation because we would have be 2 years removed from him getting hurt, because he's just like Jared Goff, but with a better arm, much more athleticism. So he's in terms a better version of Jared Goff. So you like his potential year 2 and on forward. So if you can get him late in a stash, I would do that just to have him in tow.
I know you weren't a Will Levis guy in the scouting process in Tennessee. Not a great landing spot. Traylon Burks' first-round pick last year, but other than that, cupboards are pretty bare from a playmaking standpoint. But does he have the, he didn't run a lot last season, but he was dealing with some lingering issues injury-wise. Does he have the athleticism to be a fantasy contributor if he can get an opportunity?
Not necessarily. I feel like he's more like what they already have in Tannehill, in terms of that type of athlete. Now, to be fair, Tannehill was a former college receiver, so he had a different type of athleticism. I'm talking about Tannehill, the quarterback. We don't see him take off and run as much. I feel like that's what we see, what we will see from a guy like Levis. So I don't think he provides that much upside from a fantasy perspective with his running, but also within that offense. They just don't have that type of output to put up those type of passing numbers that you want to see from your fantasy quarterback.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll be back tomorrow to talk some dynasty. We'll see you then.